News Radio 840 WHAS coming up on today's Louisville Real Estate Show. With all the snow these past couple of weeks, is there a way to be better prepared for the upcoming snow this coming week? Also, what happens if you find a home you really want to buy, but you see that there's a backyard full of pet tombstones? And we'll look at some of your feedback from past radio shows. And finally, is there a home insect invasion coming this spring? We'll tell you. Good morning, everybody. Bob Sokoler, owner of the Sokoler team, Remax Properties East. Thank you for joining us on this Sunday. It's been a heck of a week, and it looks like we're going to see more of the same coming this coming week. And here to discuss some of your questions and problems, we've got some really great people. Cora Henderson is one of the head honchos over at Pitt and Frank Attorneys, LLC. They not only do a great job closing your loan, but they do a phenomenal job with other things like wills. And you can give Cora and her folks a phone call at 895-9900. Also here, Brad Lawler is the owner of Home Team Inspection Service and Team Bug Out. With Home Team, they're the number one home team inspection service now 10 years in a row. That's a great honor. Plus, he owns Team Bug Out, so he's got a lot of wealth of information. If you'd like to get in contact with Brad for either of those services, inspection of your home or pest control, you can reach him and his team at 844-411-TEAM. And if you are thinking of selling your home now or in the future, I would love to help you. No home too big, no home too small. And I work both in Southern Indiana and Louisville and surrounding areas. You can reach me on my cell phone anytime, 376-LIVE. That translates into 376-5483. Or go to bobsellslouisville.com and enter the information. Or you can go, if you want a free analysis of your house in terms of pricing, we've got a computer set up to do that for you. Go to WeSellLouisville.com and click on the top of the page and enter your information. All right, so we've got a bunch of stuff going on, including some feedback. We'll get to that in a couple minutes. Let's start with some of the questions. And I think on this one, we'll go to Cora to start with over at Pitt and Frank LLC. Steve wrote in that he's looking for buying his first home. He just recently toured a house that checked off lots of his boxes, but he found the backyard had been turned into a pet cemetery. Apparently, tombstones are posted all over. He's wondering, can he ask the sellers or potential sellers to remove the tombstone in his written offer? Interesting question, Cora.
So interesting. And Steve, I'm quite proud that you were able to find a home that checked most of the boxes. I mean, you're winning right there. So just to answer your question, and first thing, I would look at the seller's name and see if it's Stephen King. He did write the famous book Pet Cemetery, by the way.
But, very good.
All jokes aside, each state has pet burial laws, and while I'm not off the cuff well versed with Kentucky's pet burial laws, I suspect it is probably legal to do so, with certain ramifications built under the state law. So, your question was, can I ask him to remove it? Absolutely, you can. It doesn't mean they're going to do it, and it also doesn't mean that under law they're required to do it. But I think it's definitely worth an ask. Also, maybe worth a little bit of research to see what Kentucky's pet burial laws are. And I'd be hard pressed to think that even if they refuse to remove the tombstones and or any bodies that may be underneath the ground, that if you bought the home, I would think that you could do what you wanted with that. May or may not be bad karma to dig those up, but it's not like the human bodies where you have disinterment laws and things of that nature. So a couple of different considerations, but I think probably the easiest path forward is just, obviously approaching it with the right sensitivities. I have fur babies, love my fur babies. And so maybe just making that request and seeing how it develops. I mean, after all, they may choose to bring their loved ones with them. And so whether it be, providing those bodies to different cremation services so that they could take them, to their new home or their new adventure, they may be planning on doing that anyway. But I think approaching it with the sensitivity, ask the questions, and doing your research, Steve, you'll be in good shape.
We've been doing this radio show, I think, 10 years now. And in past years, we had one question, I remember, that kind of hinted at this type of a problem. But in that case, the sellers wanted permission in the contract to come back on a regular basis to visit the pets in the backyard of what would be their prior home. I don't know how that ended up happening was the question, and it was really something that was unusual. It just comes to mind. So interesting. And be lucky here, there, Steve, that maybe the sellers don't want to come back and visit their pets.
Very interesting.
Yeah. A reminder, if you want to see a rebroadcast of this show, now not only can you hear it, but actually see it, you can go to LouisvilleAnswers.com. That's a redirect to our YouTube channel, LouisvilleAnswers.com. And if you want to see more about the reviews, we're very proud of our reviews. You can go to LouisvilleGoogle.com or LouisvilleZillow.com and read some of the reviews that we've got. Over now to Brad Lawler, owner of Home Team Inspection Service. Sandra writes in. She says, I can't stand all this snow and more coming. She's wondering any suggestions on how to be better prepared for the snow. So, Brad, think about that for a sec, and let me just give you a couple updates. I bought, if you follow the show, you listen, I bought one of those shovels that has basically a snowblower built into it. This was about $130, Amazon. If you want the brand, send me an email. bob@WeSellLouisville.com. I tried it this past week. What was it? Tuesday. We had a little snow, but it was wet and not even a quarter of an inch. But I had to try the blower to see if it worked, and it works great. I mean, it doesn't throw it a whole long throw, but it was also very wet, so it was also very heavy. But it worked great. And then I also bought, just in case I didn't use it, the snow shovel with a two-handed kind of grip, so you can use it better. And then we also have an email from a question that involves this, and so I'm going to put quotes around this, using ice melt to get rid of the ice on your sidewalks and driveway. We'll get to that problem that we've got on the email in just a few minutes. But Brad, how about you? Any other suggestions?
Here's the tough part. Right now, where we are in February, we know we've got winter weather ahead of us still in March. We're going to get bits of it. We get snow one day and it's 45, 50 degrees the next. It melts off. The problem that we're having is that people who were unprepared, they don't have the ice melt, and they're now resorting to other things that they have around their house, whether they're throwing table salt out, whether they're using tablets from their water softener. Those are all going to cause some problems. So I would say that if you see a bag of ice melt out there in a hardware store, big box store, grab one, have that, on standby. The other thing is we went through that deep freeze. A lot of people took garden hoses out. They put them back out. And now we're getting a lot of water lines breaking because they're putting those hoses out. They're turning the water back on. It's too early to do that. Keep your winter preparedness kit together, if you will. Have that blanket, have that little bit of food, a little bit of water in your car if you're going anywhere. Here a few days ago we had people sliding off the roads during those early morning rush hours. So don't let your guard down. I think the problem right now is most of the supplies are gone, the shovels are gone, and it's one of those things that don't just reach into the cabinet to see what you've got. You might just be better off waiting a couple of days, let the snow clear, let the ice clear, and come on spring. The groundhog. Let's hope the groundhog got it wrong, and we've got spring closer at hand than what Punxsutawney Phil told us.
And hey, Brad, isn't some salt safer for concrete as opposed to others?
Yeah, so
we'll get into that in a second.
Yeah,
we're going to hit that in a question.
It's a good point because a lot of it can damage.
Yep. We'll talk about that in a sec. Besides the other items that were missing from the big box stores, try to find a generator these days. Some of them stocked back up again, but then they're being sold out in fear of losing power. All right. A reminder, you can see the future of Louisville photography. You can go to Louisville3D.com. That's Louisville3D.com. That shows you some of the stuff that we do to help sell our clients' homes. Over to Cora Henderson over at Pitt and Frank LLC. Cora, Jenny sent us this email saying she's thrilled to be closing on her new home at the end of the month. And Jenny says she wants to be as prepared for moving in as possible. And she writes, I've already gotten a list of essentials like change locks, cleaning supplies, basic tools, first night box, I guess, when she stays there the first night. She's asking us for any additional recommendations. Brad, you may want to jump in on this as well. And I came up with a short list. Set up utilities. You want to make sure electricity has been turned over, water, gas, internet, trash collection, if it's not included in your HOA. Change your address with the United States Postal Service. Update your driver's license and vehicle registration. Set up auto pay for your mortgage and utilities even, and that's easy to make it happen. And then create an emergency fund for unexpected home expenses. Thoughts, Cora? Anything else that you would add?
I think you covered it, Bob. I'm super proud. I mean, you're magnificent. And I think that's so important to have the real estate professional that's involved in the transaction, the agent, really coach you on some of those guidelines. Just to piggyback on what you said, utilities, unfortunately, can take sometimes 3 to 4 business days. So, it's not a same day call, despite, that counterintuitive, I should just be able to call and they push a button and it's going to click into my name. It doesn't often work that way. So I think planning ahead for those. I love the change of address bit, certainly with the United United States Post Service, and maybe even setting up some forwarding if you're moving from a different location, so you have your mail at your former location as well. But then any other types of legal requirements, if you hold different licenses, you want to update, your new address with that. You want to make arrangements for your driver's license. So there is a state law that requires, they only let you have so many days before you have to update your residence on your driver's license. So you may or may not be able to do that online. You may have to go in person. And so just making your checklist on that. And certainly if you are getting financing, making sure that you're making your mortgage payments. You do not want to get off on a bad foot. And then lastly, Bob, I really want to reiterate what you said about a little bit of a nest egg for different home improvements. I think a lot of times you may or may not have a limited home warranty in place. And so having that accessible at your fingertips, we so want a new home these days. And even if there were repairs made to the property, nothing's perfect. I always tell people, welcome to home ownership when things break. And sometimes it stinks. It breaks sooner than you think, maybe a week after closing, a couple months. Some people have a good lucky streak of a couple years. But nonetheless, having the financial wherewithal to make those repairs in the event you are one of those unlucky few, having your home warranty information, and really just having a good real estate agent where you can call and say, I really need to get an HVAC person out here. I don't think it's working right. Who do I need to talk to? They are your best referral source.
You got it. You better believe it. Brad, do you want to add anything to that?
The only thing I want to add is if you're moving into a house that has been vacant and they shut the water off, okay, when you turn that water back on, there's a high likelihood that main water valve is going to leak. So be prepared for that. Also be prepared that there may be other lines that had frozen and have broken. So whether it's a spigot outside, whether it's some other water line in the house, when you move in and you turn that water back on, just make sure that you're ready to shut it back off if there is any evidence of water leaking, because if you're not paying attention to it, that water damages things really, really quickly.
Great point. And with the door locks too, you may want to check all the windows just to make sure they're locked from a safety standpoint.
And backing up to the water main line, turning on and off, it will leak because the seal is dried out. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Okay.
Well, yes. So because those valves are not manipulated very often, they do seize up and they do leak when you use them. So when you turn the water back on, they may have a leak there, but you may also find that there's a leak elsewhere in the house. And that was one of the reasons why the water was shut off. We see that a lot in vacant homes, particularly over the winter months.
A reminder that if you want to see what sellers are actually saying about us, you can go to our YouTube channel, LouisvilleSellersTalk.com. I do some interviews with our sellers at closing. That's LouisvilleSellersTalk.com. When we come back, we're going to take a break. When we come back, are we headed to a termite or other bug infestation this coming spring here in the Louisville and southern Indiana area? It's very possible. That's when we come back. Continuing with us after the break, Cora Henderson, Pitt and Frank Attorneys, LLC. They do a great job of closing your loan, 895-9900. Also, Brad Lawler, owner of Home Team Inspection Service and Team Bug Out. They do a phenomenal job of inspecting your home if you're buying new or a resale, and also treating pests in your house, 844-411-TEAM. And if you're thinking of selling your home now or in the future, I'd love to be able to help you. No home too big, no home too small. You can reach me on my cell phone, 376-5483. That's 376-LIVE, or go to bobsellslouisville.com and click at the top of the page. And if you would like some more information about your home pricing, we've got a computer set up right now. It's easy to head to. Go to WeSellLouisville.com and also click on the top of the page. We'll take you into the form to fill out to get you that information. We're back in a moment on News Radio 840 WHAS. News Radio 840 WHAS, Bob Sokoler, Louisville Real Estate Show, here with you till the top of the hour. Staying with us, Brad Lawler, owner of Home Team Inspection Service and Team Bug Out. They do a great job of not only inspecting your home, but also if you got termites, pests, they can help you with that as well. 844-411-TEAM. Also with us, Cora Henderson, Pitt and Frank Attorneys, LLC. They do a great job of getting your loan closed at the closing table. Very thorough to make sure the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. You can reach Cora and the folks over at Pitt and Frank at 895-9900. And if you think of selling your home now or in the future, I work both in southern Indiana and throughout Louisville and surrounding areas. You can reach me, Bob Sokoler, 376-5483. That's 376-LIVE. Or you can go to bobsellslouisville.com, fill out the form, and also for that free instant analysis on what your home is worth, computerized, but it's a start. Go to WeSellLouisville.com and click on the top of the page. All right, so the question is, are we going to see a infestation of bugs and critters this coming spring? Brad, you put together an updated list. Let's go through it rather quickly. I'll give you the line, and then let's just give me the rundown in a one-line version. Yep. Mosquitoes, what are we looking at?
Always. Some got killed off. There's going to be a lot of pressure. We had a wet winter, and they're going to be back with a vengeance. You got to treat early in order to get those things controlled. So ovipositors, the stations placed out in late April is the best method of controlling.
Swarming termites, you're saying that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of the termites. We have subterranean termites. They're underground right now. They're going to come out here April, May. You're going to start seeing these winged insects flying around. Every one of those is either an ant or a termite looking to be a new queen, setting up a new colony. So don't ignore those flying insects that you see. Call someone to make sure they are not termites, because we've had a lot of damage that we found even over this winter.
Fleas and ticks.
Always a problem, particularly if you have pets. Wooded lots, grass. Fleas come in to your house. Ticks and fleas both transmit diseases to our pets. Ticks can transmit diseases to humans as well.
Wood-destroying insects.
Yeah, it's not just the termites that are the problems. We see carpenter bees, carpenter ants. If you've got shrubs and trees close to your house, that's an easy pathway in for those carpenter ants. Carpenter bees, you'll see them bore holes in the side of their house. They're not just unsightly, but they're actually causing structural weakness in that wood. So you want to treat those as soon as you see those bees show up.
And cicadas. Yes, cicadas.
Yeah, we got another brood coming. We're right on the edge of it. It's brood 14, I think, is the cycle of them. So we're going to see those sometime in June. It's not going to be as bad as some of the others, but they're going to be loud, noisy, and our pets love to eat those.
We're going to follow up in a couple of weeks when Brad rejoins us in 2 weeks with how to prevent entry into your home with some of these things. So we'll follow that up, and hopefully that helps. All right, we go back over to Cora Henderson over at Pitt & Frank LLC. Tony, tough question for us, Cora. She says she put an offer in on a house. The seller counted the next day. They accepted that evening. Seller returned the signed contract the following morning. That's an important point. And the real estate agent let Tony and family know that they had gotten the house. It's under a contract. But then the seller received a better offer and is now trying to back out of the deal. Tony says she was told the escrow deposit was due yesterday, so they already paid that. The title company's inspections are scheduled and paid the bank for an appraisal and financing, and the sellers are trying to claim that the contract can't hold because they returned the signed contract to their agent a day later. I'm not quite sure what that means, but ultimately, what would you suggest for Tony? This does not sound right.
Yeah, just to clarify, I would want to know when the contract was signed. So in the event, there was a counter, so there's an offer on the table, and it had a must be accepted by X time, which I think in your fact pattern said that evening. And so now the seller's trying to claim they never delivered the acceptance to the following morning. So that may be, an invalid point to the extent that it was in fact accepted and signed within the, contract parameters. So I would definitely check on that. In fact, the contract, the board form used by the real estate agents require not only a date, but a time. So there should be evidence of that. Additionally, we are so blessed, I think, with having the DocuSign, AuthentiSign, whatever, subscription that your agent may be using to capture electronic signatures. You can't fiddle with those. It is what it is. It is locked there. So, if it's accepted within that time parameter, the fact that it may have been followed up on the next morning, delivered the next morning, to me is irrelevant. You have proof there and evidence that it was accepted within the acceptable time parameter. So that would be my first look-see in that regard. And so long as it was accepted within that time frame, my next, thought would be, absent a contingency in the contract, then we're looking at a potential breach situation by the seller. And, that's unfortunate maybe for them that they received what they perceived to be a better offer. But at the same time, you were the one that was the early bird and you got the worm. So good for you, Tony.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a bluff to try to get you to pull out so that they can pull on a higher priced offer. And I think Cora's dead on. You got it. I would stick with it. And if you get some more legal opinions on this, other than just your real estate agents, and Cora is going to be available. We'll give you her phone number out in just a couple of minutes. If you're thinking about selling your home, we have a free no obligation booklet. It has hundreds of useful tips. If you want a copy, just send me an email, bob@WeSellLouisville.com, and put selling tips in the subject line. On that same note, we also have, thanks to Home Team Inspection Service, a report on what to expect during a home inspection. Send me an email. Again, I'll send it out to you, bob@WeSellLouisville.com, with the word inspection in the subject line, and we'll send that report out to you as well. Brad Lawler, speaking of inspections, when you go out to inspect a home, you look at the driveway to see if there is either chipping or heaving, so that trip hazards.
Yeah.
Well, Jimmy just sent us an email, and he says that he bought a new house 8 months ago. He threw some de-ice rock salt that he bought at a big box store on the driveway during the last big snowstorm a couple of weeks ago. He says he was out on the driveway this past week and noticed pit marks, little pieces of the driveway now missing, small pieces, but missing. Obviously, he thinks from the rock salt he's wondering, is that normal, and what can he do?
Yes, so that is called spalling. It is very common. Salt, the wrong type of salt, rock salt, water softener salt, can cause spalling of concrete. Now, the easiest thing to do is to pressure wash that driveway off and then reseal it. Whether if it's an aggregate, use an aggregate sealer. If it's finished concrete, brushed concrete, you can use a concrete sealer. But either way, that is a normal common maintenance item that you want to do with any sort of concrete driveway. You got to keep it sealed. Asphalt is less susceptible to spalling. It doesn't really do that, but you want to keep asphalt driveways sealed as well. So yeah, again, be careful about throwing out those things like rock salt, because it can lift the sealant if there's one there, or it will the frosting, the freezing, thawing that takes place is also what lifts those layers of concrete up.
All right, so some quick questions then. Is it already too late for this guy that it's pitted? Because it's pitted.
No.
What are you going to do to fix the pitting?
Well, no, the sealer will make those pits kind of go away. It'll cause them to blend in. They're not as evident. And even if he's had a little bit of surface lift, those top layers of concrete, even if they're lifted, sealing it is going to give them a look that it takes it almost back to what that original finish looks like. The marks won't be as evident.
So is concrete sealer the same whether it's exposed to aggregate or just a plain driveway seal?
Well, so an aggregate sealer is a little bit different. It sits up on top. A concrete sealer penetrates a little bit deeper into it. They're not exactly interchangeable. Check with your local paint company to make sure that you're getting the right type of sealer for the driveway that you have.
And do it on a day that is instructed by the company that you're using. Like with painting, you're not supposed to paint if it's over 60 degrees, right?
Below 60 degrees. You want to make sure, yes, that the surface temperature is not too cool. Right now, you don't want to do those treatments. Wait till spring, wait till all of the concrete's heated back up and is above those minimum temperatures, because otherwise you're just going to end up doing it twice because it's just going to peel off.
And maybe avoid rock salt of all types until you get the sealant done. Okay.
And what happens if you have like a piece that chips off? Is that something where that whole square or anywhere where there's the driveway cut, you have to replace that whole thing and they have to like jackhammer it up, or is there an easier fix?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about actually a broken piece, like a chunk of it, a lot of times what you can do is you can patch that. You can use a crack sealant, patch that up. I've seen areas that have been patched. Just somebody, a handyman, someone that knows how to fix concrete, they're able to patch that corner to make it look like it's not evident that the piece is missing. But pretty common. Fortunately, those pieces normally stay in place, and the easiest thing to do is a crack fix.
Got it.
Nice.
Back over to Cora Henderson over at Pitt and Frank LLC. Sarah says she bought a home this past year, did not get a survey because there was a map on, she says, Logic, which we have availability. It's over online. You can find Logic. And it showed the boundaries of her new home, which may have been a mistake. I think Sarah is now realizing. Now it appears that there may be a problem because the area she wanted to use as a pool, to build a pool, may actually be on her neighbor's property, which she's wondering what should she do. So, Cora, what are your thoughts on that?
You got to have a survey done. So I understand that generally speaking, I think Logic is a brilliant resource and it gives you a general idea. Also, we hear people, want to avoid the cost of a survey, which, can be pricey depending on the scope of the property, might be as little as $500-$600, but they want to avoid it by looking at the subdivision plat and just kind of going with what they think the lines are. But, whether it's one of those scenarios or where you cut the grass or where the fence is located, unfortunately, all those are unreliable sources. It's all going to be a no-no. And so general idea, yeah. But if you're going to do improvements, if you are looking at a property, you want to build an addition, a garage, do something with the driveway, build a pool, a fence, you're going to want to have the survey. And frankly, most contractors require it and a lot of HOAs require it before you are able to complete the work. So you're steering that cost down regardless. And you have so much leverage and the power of knowledge during the course of the real estate transaction, as opposed to when you own it and you're kind of, out of luck at that point. So I don't think you can rectify the situation. It was your reliance on Logic. Do a survey, and maybe these pool people can get creative on the location. If you want to really get aggressive, you could maybe approach your neighbor and see if they'd be willing and according to planning and zoning, allowing them to permit, you purchasing some of that property and shifting the boundary lines. But that's definitely an extreme answer and happy to talk you through that if you wanted to go that aggressive.
All right, we get a lot of feedback as we wrap things up. By the way, you can see a rebroadcast of today's show going to LouisvilleAnswers.com. That's LouisvilleAnswers.com. And so one of the topics we've talked about, and I'll give you these on a regular basis, I'll try to get these in, the truth about dish soap in your toilet. Brad, you may remember we did that, that question, right?
Yeah.
And the response that from one of our listeners, whose name I'll only go with AG, says, add detergent to the toilet, then pour in a bucket of hot water, not boiling, and Bob's your uncle. Okay, it works. He just did it today, he says. Detergent to the toilet, pour in a bucket of hot, not boiling water. I thought that was kind of cute. Well,
That's interesting.
we had a lot of feedback. In fact, we're as we wrap up here, one of our videos was used online on one of the websites. Brad, you had sent me a copy of this, a link?
Yeah, it was interesting. I was out doing some research on termite pressures for 2025, and I was reviewing an entomology blog, kind of a nerdy science research location. And wouldn't you know, they'd used one of our clips from one of the radio shows talking about, and they referred to the clip as termite chaos in Kentucky, which I had to chuckle. I'm like, wait a minute, that's Bob Sokoler on there. And I read, and yeah, they'd used one of our radio show
questions,
conversations.
and answers.
It's pretty interesting. So
it's great.
Yeah.
We love it. And anybody wants to use our videos, go to LouisvilleAnswers.com or LouisvilleQuestions.com. We are out of time. My thanks to Cora Henderson, Pitt and Frank Attorneys LLC. You can reach them anytime to get your loan closed, or for wills and other legal matters. You can reach Cora and her folks at 895-9900. Also, my thanks to Brad Lawler, owner of Home Team Inspection Service, and also Team Bug Out for inspections of your home or to get rid of some pesky pests, I should say.
Not pets.
Pests. 844-411-TEAM. And if you're thinking of selling your home now or in the future, love to be able to help you. You can call me anytime on my cell phone, 376-5483. That's 376-LIVE. Or go to bobsellslouisville.com and fill out the form. And for that free instant computer analysis, go to WeSellLouisville.com and click on the top of the page. We're out of time. See you next Sunday on News Radio 840 WHAS.